briefly. I'm trying to figure out how this story winds up being about Donald Trump. How does this story wind up being about Donald Trump? And where do the media get off claiming the moral high ground? When human rights abuses all over the world, right off our border, take place every day, involving far more than one individual, mostly go underreported or not reported. How many stories did they do about torture and political prisoners in Cuba when Obama was opening an embassy in Cuba? Very few. How many stories did they do about the genocidal police state in China? Very few. Very few. We're not responsible for what took place in that Saudi consulate in Turkey. Of course, we react to it. Of course, we should do what we feel we need to do in order to address it. But we didn't do anything. The blood isn't on our hands. Yes, there's a lot to be outraged about. There's a lot to be outraged about. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Now, if you don't get in line behind the media narrative, you come under brutal attack. Like Sebastian Gorka's coming under brutal attack. He doesn't follow the media narrative. And others don't follow the media narrative. I don't follow the media narrative. I follow my own conscience, my own principles, my own belief system. I look around the world. The coverage of this Khashoggi matter, as horrible as that murder is well beyond the kind of coverage that other human rights abuses that take place in this world, which are far more extensive and systemic. How many other people have been murdered by the Saudi regime? I'm sure many others. Do we know who they are? No, we don't have the foggiest idea who they are. Do we know how many? No, we don't know how many. Well, why not? Because the media could give a damn. That's why. They could give a damn. As I speak to you right now, there are black Christians in the Sudan who are being slaughtered and raped and tortured in the most horrendous ways. There are black Christians being slaughtered and tortured and raped in the worst ways in Nigeria, in the Congo, by these radical black Muslim organizations and groups, terrorists. Have you heard a word about that in the last 2 weeks? Anything at all? Anything? Have you heard about how Hezbollah and Hamas torture and murder their own people if they don't toe the line? Have you heard any of that? No, you haven't heard a damn thing about it. Iran, the Iran deal. Our government facilitated the delivery of $150 billion to a terrorist regime. Our president at the time, Obama, oversaw and was intimately involved in every detail of the delivery of $1.5 billion in foreign currency under cover of darkness, delivered on an airplane, a non-American airplane, hoping that it wouldn't be seen, to the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran, which has one of the highest execution rates in the world. Obama didn't come under criticism from the same people who are involved in criticizing our president, who's had no role whatsoever in any of this. So the media use it to attack him. The media use it to attack conservatives. I think I read somewhere the pro-Saudi conservatives. Who the hell are the pro-Saudi conservatives? Somehow I wound up in that group. Mr. Producer, have I ever said anything that makes me a pro-Saudi anything? I said nothing the last 2 weeks. I wasn't on the air. The media are diabolical. They're disgraceful. I don't know of anyone, it's possible, who's making any excuses for what the Saudi regime, which is an incestuous throwback regime. I don't know anybody who's making any excuses for the brutal assassination of this journalist. But what people are asking is about the coverage. On the one hand, it's nonstop. On the other hand, are they reporting everything about the gentleman who was murdered? You're not allowed to ask. And by the way, while you're at it, don't ask about climate change. You can't ask. Don't ask about anything. Now, they're legitimate policy questions. Can we debate those? Is the president right when he says, I'm not going to forfeit $110 billion purchase of American military armaments, which the Chinese or the Russians would sell otherwise? Why is that a controversial statement? The purpose of that sale is to benefit us. If it purely benefited the Saudis, that would be one thing, but it benefits America. I mean, as I said earlier in the program, what the hell? We opened an embassy in Cuba. It's a police state that tortures and murders. President's been attacked because of his hard policies on China. I told you Iran has one of the highest execution rates in the world. China has the highest execution rate in the world. Ask the Tibetans. Ask the other religious minorities in China. Ask any of the political dissidents how they're treated in China. And these aren't real trials that take place in China at all. All right, so what should we do? What should we do? These are legitimate questions that ought to be engaged, discussed, and policy thoughtfully considered. But who's knee-jerking around now? The media and the left. The president must do this. The president must do that. Presidents have 13 different positions on this. It's a non-American citizen in the Saudi consulate, Saudi territory, within the country of Turkey. Within the country of Turkey. I despise the Saudi leadership. I despise the Turkey leadership. Despise them all. But I know how dishonest the media are. When my name is thrown around when I'm off the air for 2 weeks, as if I said something, which I didn't, as if somebody at CRTV who said I'm monitored or managed by me, which he's not. That's your media. It sucks. And I'm not involved in any whisper campaigns. I have a microphone, for God's sakes. 8.5 million people can hear what I say. What's a whisper campaign? I'll be right back.
This is the nation's town.